Hi, and welcome to a new episode of First Days with Johanna. I'm Johanna, and we're right now sitting in my studio here in south of Sweden. This is the place where I film my videos to all the workshops that I'm giving out. This is the place where I dye the yarn, and this is not the place where I create the patterns because that is mostly in my sofa indoors. This is also indoors. This was a part of the garage with installation, so it's good and heated and everything. So the yarn is kept safe. But we divided a part of it, and now this is my studio, and this is where I keep all the good stuff. And it's quite luxurious to have your own yarn store just across the yard. So whenever I feel like doing something, I can go out here and see what I can find. Or I can dye it up myself because I know what qualities I have on hand. And that's not what I have done for most of my whips this week, but I think it's, there are two of them that I actually dye the yarn for. So yeah, some things have happened since last week. So do you want to get started so we can see what's on my needles for this week? There's still a lot of socks, but there's also some socks that haven't been touched since last week. Like this ones, they're still put off a little bit. So I'm gonna start with those soon. But first of all, I have some other things that I'm working on. And I even cast on a new pair, so we start with those, I think. This is a pair of socks worked 2 at a time magic loop from the toe up. This will be for my 8-year-old son. And as usual, I've taken his measurements and I'm working from that. So right now I'm in the middle of a row because I just started the short row heel. And this is not my normal short row heel, so I'm gonna knit it and evaluate it and see if it's something that I need to share in the fabulous socks. I will get back to that. I'm doing a different kind of turn that I'm compared to what I'm usually doing or what I did in this sock. So we will see if it turns out the way I want it. So this is actually hand-dyed yarn. So I'm knitting straight from a sock blank. I don't know, this is not as common to use, but this is a knitted piece and then I've dyed it with different colors on it. And then it's called a sock blank, and this one is with 2 threads, so it's compared to 2 50-gram balls of yarn, but it's knitted up. So when I start knitting with it, you get all these kinks in it, but it doesn't really matter once you knitted with it. It will smoothen out in the first wash and they will be perfectly smooth again. So I'm knitting straight from this one, and if you don't want to knit straight from your sock blank, you can rip it and wash it and then the kinks will be gone. But yeah, it's quite interesting way to dye up the yarn because I could never get parts like this on a hank of yarn. What you get from this is you get this pattern. It's not even pattern, but different colors in between of your sock. So it creates some cool effects when you do it like that. And you can even dye some stealth striping yarn with the sock blank. Then you divide them off in different parts, or a gradient going from one color to another. But that has taken, or not that much time. I cast them on not Christmas Day, the day after, so that will be the 26th. And I'm already at the heel, so I'm quite happy with it. I'm working my way through them. And my son requested to have some of this red yarn. This is a Malabrigo sock, so it's got no nylon in it, so I will not use it on the foot and on the heel. I will use it only in the leg of the sock. But it's superwash nylon, or superwash merino, so it will work good with the rest of the sock because that is superwash merino and some nylon. And this is the same yarn that I used for his hat that I showed last week. So he wanted not matching socks, but socks in the same yarn. So that's what I'm doing for him. Actually, he wanted the red on the foot, but I said no. So got some way in still. I said the yarn won't hold, and I'm not that interested in knitting socks every week for him. Even if I can manage it, I still have some other people to knit socks for, like myself, because when I looked through my sock drawer, I saw that there were a lot of them that needed some attention and mending, and some of them were actually quite worn through, so we will see what will happen to them. Otherwise, I'm quite good at mending socks, and I'm thinking that next show I will show you some mending of socks, or what I usually do from them. But this was the first sock project this week. And the second project is actually what do you call a hoe, a half-finished object. So I got one sock done. This is a sock for my husband, and I think I said last week that he have a very high instep. So this is a Flegel heel with some extra length added. So it looks kind of weird, but it fits him very nice on the foot. And yeah, I used some black opal 4-ply. And the multicolor yarn is a Regia design line from Arne and Carlos in the colorway 3655. And I only had a 50-gram ball, and this is all that I have left from it. So I'm waiting for more to come in the post because I don't want to start with this one and then have to match up the stripes to make it perfect. So I will start with a new ball and do the same for the next sock. And then I will have some leftovers to deal with, but we take that one later on. So it's a modified pattern. There is a plain foot, and on the leg I worked some broken 3x1 rib. So every other round is a knit 3 and 1 purl, or purl 1, and then the next row I just knit through all of the stitches. So that makes a broken rib, and then a normal 1x1 rib before I bound off with Jenny Surprisingly Stretchy bind off using only the purl stitches that I showed you last week. So yeah, looks kind of funny, but works like a dream on him. So I will continue doing socks that actually fit his very, very high instep. So maybe I don't have to fix them all of the time. I can hear that we have the, what do you call it, the small smoke alarm. It's calling for new batteries, and hopefully you don't pick it up. But if you hear a small beep going off in the background, that's what it is, and I'm so sorry about it. I can hear it quite low, so hopefully it won't ruin your ears. On to the next sock project. This was something that we talked about last week as well. This is a sock for me, and I'm so happy with the yarn and the colors. I find them, oh, I get so happy every time I get to this multicolored line. And now I'm at the point where I will start doing increases to use the strong heel, which is basically the Flegel heel, but when you're doing it from cuff down instead. So I've done the first increase. That's why I have this marker here, and this is the start of my round, so I don't have any marker there. The yarn is from the Wool Kitchen and the colorway Cosmic Girl. The Wool Kitchen is based in the UK, and she dyes the most handsome yarns, or the most beautiful yarns, with these color pops all over them, and I'm so happy every time. This is one of her BFL blends, so it will wear perfectly for socks. And I'm using a 9-inch circumference Shogu needle to use this one, or to work this one. And this point protector is from Clover, I think. So you just put it on there so the stitches won't fall off when put in a bag or handled, because I don't keep it on there except for when I'm knitting, to keep the stitches safe. Yeah, we will see if it has a little bit more on it for next week when I don't have to knit socks for my son. That was 3 sock projects, and that's actually it, what I have worked on regarding socks this week. I have one more project, and that has been a project that I couldn't show you last week because that was still going on then. This year I had 2 different colorways in the advent calendar that I dyed up, or yeah. So I had one that was called Varma toner, which will be like warm hues, and grönt är skönt, which will be like green is not really nice, but like superb or something like that. So I have worked mostly with the greens, and in this calendar there was also a pattern that you can knit up squares. So if you knit all of the squares, you get a blanket in the end. So this is the first square from the green calendar, which is a blue-green and then some pink ones. And you get this edge around all of the squares, and I've knitted one more edge on this square. So I have created a whole bunch of squares here. This first one is blocked, but the rest one isn't, so they're a little bit wonky until you actually block them out and stretch them. But as you saw on the first one, it will fit quite nice with the garter stitch edge compared to the rest of the square. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 squares done. So that's half of the blanket. And I'm working on my 7th. And on this one, it was green and red. So I'm halfway through there. And then I have some more mini hanks to go with the rest. So here's 2 of them, and here's some more, and the last 4. So it's getting greener and greener. It was a little bit more purple and some yellow and yeah, different shades all of the way through. So that's been a fun project to work on since I've done 7 of them already, I'm starting to memorize the pattern, so I don't have to look it up. It's just working from itself. My fingers just do it. So it's almost worked into my muscles at the moment. But it's nice to switch things up and don't knit very tight all the time, because the socks are knit at a very tight gauge for me. And that is the way I like them, and that is also why I need to recalculate every pattern, because I knit way tighter than most of the knitting patterns are worked at the moment, or at the standard. I keep a tighter gauge, so I need to rework them to make them fit me. That was it about all the whips that I have. And I have one finish of it, but it's not with me, because that was the last minute Christmas gift that I was knitting. I knitted a hat for my kid's cousin, and it's a copy of the hat that my daughter has. So here's a picture of my daughter in her hat, and I knitted a copy of it because the cousin came along and took her hat and just loved to wear it. So I figured that she needed a hat for Christmas. But it was drying up the night before, or between Christmas Eve and Christmas Day, and we met them on Christmas Day. So it was quite perfect. I woven in the ends on the morning of Christmas Day just before we left and packed it up, and she was happy when she got it, but I didn't get any picture from her. So it fit her perfect, and it was a good quick knit, even if it was last minute. But since this is the last first day of the year, and as I said in the first episode, then I wanted to have a New Year's cast on. So I'm still hoping that I can manage to do that, because I still need to plan out some color work, and yeah, we will find the time for that. But what I want to do is actually knit an Estonian inspired sock, using both traveling stitches and color work in the same sock. And I don't want to make it a stocking, so I don't want it to go up to my knee or above. I just want to keep it fairly regular. And when knitting an Estonian sock, you're using pure wool yarn with no nylon in it, so it needs to be knit on a tight gauge. And one of them, the yarns that you can use for sock, is the Rauma Gammelserie. It's a 2-ply, and it's twisted harder than the normal 2-ply yarn. And you can also buy this yarn from Sara in Estonia. And then they rebranded it into Hea, but it still says that it's coming from Rauma. And it's in Estonia, but it says that you can use like number 1.75 to 1.5 to knit socks. So it will be very interesting to cast on. I'm not sure that I will go down to 1.75 or 1.5. But a 2mm will definitely be used, so it will keep for a long time. I knit with this yarn one time before, and I'm sorry about all the hairs on it. It attracts hair from my dogs, and I don't know what to do about it. But this is the yarn. This is Rauma Gammelserie, and I worked a toe-up pattern with some stripes and a fleagle heel. And it was worked on 2.25mm needles. So we'll see if I use that one or if I go down one more. But that is a pair of socks that I'm really happy with at the moment. And even if it's pure wool, I hope that being knit on this tight gauge will make them keep a little bit longer. And oh, they're so warm and cozy to wear. It feels it feels different to have this rustic wool on your feet than compared to the smoothness of a superwash merino yarn or some commercial sock yarn. Even commercial sock yarn with 100% wool, or not 100% wool, but like 75% just wool and 25% nylon. This is more rustique, so you can feel it on your foot, but it's so warm and cozy, and it's have been the best socks now during winter when we actually had snow down here, and it's been -degrees for quite some time. So I know the foot will be in white with some traveling stitches, and I have more than one ball of this. And then I have leftovers from the other pair of socks, and together with these 3 colors. So I'm thinking these 4 top colors will be some kind of border with colorwork in black. So we will see if I manage to do that and manage to work everything out before Christmas Eve, New Year's Eve. So I actually can cast on. Otherwise it will be a New Year's Day cast on. We will see. I have this. I have the 2 versions in English now. We have this huge books, huge, and they're also from Saga in Estland or Estonia. The first one is Traditions and Techniques, and the second one is Socks and Stockings, and this is a dream to watch through, and Anu have done a perfectly good job with it. You can see, I just open it on random, but the stockings, there is a pattern. You can work from all different kind of ways. Not all of them combine this traveling stitches with, but the ones from Kinu, they often do. So I'm planning on something like this, and we will see if I can work it out so it fits good. And what I can see here is that they often have a lace border for, am I pointing right? Yeah, I am. For the top. So they have like a lace ribbing, and then they go down for a bit before they do the color work. And we will see what we'll end up thinking. But the reason why I love Estonian knitting is that they mix and match so many different techniques in one sock. You get some lace edging, you get color work, and you get these small cables called traveling stitches, and you can do all of the things. It doesn't really matter. I've seen on Instagram now, there is one Estonian knitter. She's doing a border in color work with some braids. It's not the Latvian braid, there are several Estonian braids as well. And then on the hand of her glove, she actually done a lace pattern on the back of her hand, and then some finger gloves for that. And it's so pretty. And she wrote today that she was finishing up and using 1mm needles. And I'm so impressed because she had actually zoomed through this project, and it was so stunning. And I will link her Instagram below so you can all go in and ooh and ah over this fabulous mittens, or gloves, not mittens, gloves. Because I think you really should do that. Yeah. That was it for my future cast on, which I'm hoping to get done really soon. And in this week's small tips and tricks, I'm going to show you 2 different ways to cast on if you want to knit a sock from toe up. So let's get started with that one. I will show you 2 ways to cast on that you can use for the toe of a sock or the tip of a mitten. Or if you want to knit a hat from the top down, you can use this cast-ons as well. And there are more uses, so you can use them whenever you need to have like a seam or something where you will have stitches on both sides that you need equal. So in this case I will be using shogu needles and some yarn. This first cast on is Judith's Magic Cast On. You take a strand of yarn like this and you hold your needles parallel to each other. And you simply put the yarn over the top needle and you twist them around and hold them like you would do like almost any cast on. So over the thumb and over the point finger or the index finger. And then you want to do, we have one stitch sitting on my top needle. Then I want to take my index finger yarn and go over the needle below. So now I have one stitch on each needle. And then I take my thumb yarn and I go up between the needles and over the top needle. And I alter this. So index finger over bottom needle and thumb yarn up between the needles and over the top needle. And just like this, I will cast on as many stitches as I would need. So here we have 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 13, no, 14, 16, 17, no, 18. And the last 2. Now we have 20. And when you want to start knitting, you simply twist the yarns again and make sure you hold on to the right end so you actually get some yarn to knit with. And if you want to knit magic loop, you can start with that. And in this case, I take a second pair of needles to be working 2 circular needles as ones. So simply start knitting the top stitch here. It's easier if you pull that one out so it's sitting on just the cable. That was Judith's Magic Cast On. For the second cast on, which will be a long tail cast on, you actually need a second pair of needles to be able to sort it out in the end. But you start with measuring your tail so you have enough to be casting on, make a loop and cast on as many stitches as you need for your cast on with the long tail. And my trick for a long tail cast on is to keep my thumb in between so I don't pull the thumb yarn too tight. This way the cast on is not too snug and is actually a little bit more elastic. But just keep on working the long tail cast on. And there we have 20. Now, to be able to use this one for cast on width from the top down, or from the toe up, top down in case of mitten and hats, and toe up for socks. Then you need to take every other stitch onto 2 separate needles. So that's where I keep my second pair of needles, because I will need 3 of them. So I take 1 stitch onto one of the needles, and next stitch onto my other one. And going back and forth like this will make you have a cast on that sits together. So you don't have to graft anything in the tip of the toe or tip of the mitten. And this one could be used for like shoulder seam of a sweater or something like that as well, if you're knitting from top down. So simply go over and take every other stitch onto the needles. So one stitch for this and one stitch for this. And when you have done it like that, you will have them sitting like this. And that works perfectly for tip of the toe or mitten or anything. Now, the problem is you have the yarn in this end. So either you have them on double points, or if you have them on circulars, make sure you put them onto the other side so you can start knitting. Right, that was 2 different ways to cast on a sock from toe up, or if you want to use it for like mittens or a hat or even the shoulder seams of a sweater. If you're starting from top up, you can do that. So I like it a lot. I usually do the, let's see, Judy's Magic cast on. And yeah, I like it. It's easy and the stitches are nice and are in the right place even from start. So that was it, the last first day of this year, and I'm really hoping that you feel like 2021 has given you something to remember, something good to remember and something that you can cherish. And when moving into 2022, I hope that you're ready to take on new challenges and to find out what this new year is going to bring us. Starting, I don't know, it will be next week. Starting next week, there will be a challenge on my Instagram. So come over to Instagram and check out everything that we have going on there. You find it over at skew_knitting academy. And it's also linked below, so please come and check it out. And we'll see you next Thursday. Have a great week and Happy New Year. Bye!